Hello and welcome to this session of Module 8. I am Silvig Bolders from Wageningen Research in the Netherlands. And this session will be about facilitation of group meetings. And there are some connection points to other parts of this module, but here we focus specifically on preparing well for meetings and facilitation of difficulties you may encounter during those meetings. So this is about Module 8, Soft Skills for Facilitating Interactive Learning and Demonstration on IPM. Preparing for a meeting, that's the first thing. We have a saying in Dutch language, warned person who is warned, counts for two. We prepare well, a lot of things that might have happened will not happen. So it's important to come prepared to meetings. That's maybe half of the message in this session. One of the things is to be clear, like, why are we going to meet at all? And what are we trying to get out of this? And does everybody know about this? And also think a little bit ahead. What might happen? What kind of interaction could I anticipate? And how can I prepare in a way that some negative group dynamics will not take place? It's also about timing. Farmers are busy people, so when it's a good time. So the more you plan this together, the bigger the chance that this will work out well. And then there's the environment. Here we can see a meeting setting which is clearly on a farm. It's open, it's casual, informal, and that can be a good setting. Maybe not always, but in many cases it will be. So maybe you can pause here for a moment and think about what are the most challenging things for you in preparing well for a meeting? What are the things that you already, from your experience, know that is a challenge? So just to zoom in on this idea of anticipating group dynamics, it's any group has its own dynamic. People will relate to each other in different ways. People may come in a certain way, and the more you are, have thought about it, the better you will be able to deal with anything that may disturb or may cause the meeting to be a bit a bumpy road. In the following, we are going to look at particular situations that may happen during meetings and which may be reasons for being disappointed at the end. And this is not an exhaustive list, but just may provide ideas that also are relevant to other situations. So we will look at the situation of one person dominating discussions, situation that there's no real interaction taking place, that there's disagreement, and more than that, maybe even conflict between participants, or that you just arrive at the end and nobody feels like you've achieved anything, or people just don't show up. Or, well, yes, there's a lot of talking, but you don't get to the heart of what was the topic to be discussed. So maybe before we go into that, let's pause for a moment and you may think about complications that you have dealt with, and how you tend to handle such situations, and whether you're happy with how you do that. Maybe there's other complications that you would add to the list, but before we go into it, think a bit about, like, where are you coming from in terms of complications in group meetings and how you are inclined to handle those. So the first is one person dominating. It's a quite common situation that one person is maybe very talkative, can be in a friendly way, but sometimes also it can be in a more manipulating way. The better facilitator, the advisor is able to anticipate this and handle the situation, the less of a problem it will be. So it may also be if the program is unclear, some may feel like they need to take charge, so to speak, because they don't have an idea of what's happening. So the clearer the program, the less opportunity also for a person to take the situation as a platform for him or herself. So this also leads back to this good preparation. And also if you see that one person is inclined to take a bit of the lead, can you maybe turn this into a positive thing, giving the person a positive role rather than just trying to suppress the person, or so to speak, but think about how you can anticipate this and create a situation where this would be less of an issue. Then there's a situation that there is no real interaction taking place. Maybe you're talking too much. Maybe the situation in the room is such that it's too much linear. People sitting in rows behind each other or behind tables. So it can be because of the setting in the room, or maybe people that just don't know what it is about. There's no clear objective, and just wait and see. Maybe you brought the wrong people together, and they don't have enough of a common ground. So think about how you might prepare in a way that there's less of a chance that there's no real interaction going on. And sometimes also sometimes you need to first do something totally different, and we get back to it later when we talk about icebreakers. Something totally different so that people can first connect on a just person-to-person level, and then only get to the content. There can be disagreement, even some conflict, which may be a real issue. There's just a real disagreement. And then you can see, well, can we agree to disagree here? Some people will feel very uncomfortable and feel a bit pushed aside if some people are having this kind of conflict. So how can you maybe be a kind of a go-between? Can also be maybe you brought together different people who are not the right people to bring together, at least not before having some bilateral interactions with each other. And sometimes you need to clarify, like, well, actually, you may seem to disagree, but, well, or you can show where this is the common ground. Think about this, if this might be an issue in a meeting, and how you could anticipate this. It could be just be, at the end, yes, all sorts of things happen, but, people are just not happy. Maybe they weren't clear why they were coming. Maybe because you invited people who were not really the right target group to be part of the meeting. Or there can be different expectations between different people there. So again, this is about making clear what is this meeting about and for who is this would be good to be there. Sometimes sometimes you find out, like, okay, wait a minute, I think people have a different expectation. You need to stop and say, okay, let me explain what this is about and what the intentions were and why. So some explaining may need to take place. So don't wait until the end of the meeting and adjust the plan if needed as you're going. Sometimes people just don't show up. Maybe you picked the wrong time, forgot about it. Maybe they wanted to come, but just forgot. It happens. So it can be useful to remind them. or just give a phone call and instead of just putting it on an app. And be aware that, that if you put on the app the invitation and one person says like, I'm not coming, and the second also, there's a good chance that the rest may not come as well. So try to handle this situation as good as you can. So there can be superficial discussions where you may want to go too fast and talk about things that it takes longer time. So then maybe, plan more time, or say like, okay, let's talk about this later a bit more. But it could also be that people just don't trust each other and think I'm not going to tell everything about what I think about this. So, be clear what this meeting is about, and also don't try to address things that are more sensitive when it's inappropriate. First, it may take time to first build good relationships, and only then enter into deeper discussions. But it could also be the way in which you bring up the topic. So finally, there will be many more situations that we could talk about, but it all comes down to preparing well, making a good plan. What's the purpose? What are we trying to achieve? What we like to get out of it? Who will is supposed to play what role in the meeting? What is realistic and what's not realistic? How will I invite? At what time? When may I need to remind people about it? What's an appropriate invitation? Is something in the app group okay, or should it be by phone or more formal way? Anyway, think about it. The logistical side, what kind of context you're meeting in? Is it going to be good to do this in a farm, in a very informal setting, or is it okay to do it in a more formal setting? What methods you will be using to enhance interactions? There's a nice checklist that you can connect to if you follow this link. A checklist on what to pay attention to in preparing for a meeting. Also, there's a variety of methods you may use. There's all sorts of tips and tricks on how you can stimulate interaction. The use of icebreakers, we talked about it before. Don't use the same icebreakers every time again, but for some reason, we sometimes first need to do something funny or something totally different before, even though we know this is an icebreaker and that's why we're doing it. Still, it often helps if you're asked to talk to your neighbor about something, or you do something funny. It does help. But build up your own repertoire and diversify over time, so that people don't think like, oh no, not again. But in the end, the method is not the goal. Like to have nice methods, they need to serve the purpose of what you try to achieve in the meeting. Also see what fits the time, so that not half your time is gone by the time you finished the funny and nice relationship building. It is very important. Sometimes you need to have a whole meeting that's just about building relationships. But think about what the purpose of the meeting is and adjust the methods accordingly. So at this point, you can stop again and maybe think about like, okay, for next meeting, what would I like to do maybe a bit differently? What could I do in a way that creates an environment and that anticipates better the kind of dynamics that may show up, so that you can play your role more effectively. And other parts of Module 8 will talk more about this. Here are some tips for reading. Again, you can follow the links. And for those who would like to delve more into it. And I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.